Hello? 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 This is the Vancouver
Commercial
Real Estate Podcast.
And welcome back to the Vancouver Commercial Real Estate Podcast, powered by our good friends over at Impact Commercial. I'm your host, Cory Wright.
And I'm your co-host, Meg Cooney.
Meg today is taking the role of the SNL host and the band. So today's guest is Meg Cooney for our interview on Strata Windups. But because you're here, we threw you into the studio and we said, hey, we're going to do the intro, outro. You're going to talk about yourself in the third person about this great guest we have today. So Meg, thanks so much for hanging out with us as much as you could.
Hey, no problem.
Today's episode, Strata Windups. We've had a lot of listeners reach out to us, and it's a big thing right now. You see a lot more of them, and people have reached out and said, hey, tell us more about this. So you're at William Wright Commercial. You're working in our Vancouver office. You've done work on Strata Windups in the past. You have a couple more coming up here. What is a Strata Windup?
Yeah, so to put it simply, strata windups is the process of getting all the owners of a strata together and agreeing to sell as a package rather than individual strata units. This happens for a variety of reasons, but the main reasons are, typically to do with zoning regulations or changes to the OCP. For example, if you look at townhomes, they were likely the highest and best use at the time they were built, but, they may become a high-rise site, which would multiply their land value and in turn, give them a better lift than if they're sell as strata lots. You also see buildings that, might need major repairs and the cost of, levies coming in or strata fees are just too much for strata owners and they'd rather opt to sell on a land basis than the individual lots.
So before we give away the house, and we don't want to give away the interview just yet.
Just a teaser.
Just a teaser of what Strata Windups. So because you're sitting in the co-hosting chair today, we're gonna throw you in on our current discussions right now. And I'm gonna ask you this question, and I don't know what the answer is, but are you watching Succession?
I am actually. I just started.
Oh.
Yeah.
So we have a running thing going here right now. You don't watch Yellowstone, do you?
I don't, but
okay, good. Okay.
Netflix is taunting me with it.
Yeah, don't. We'll let you stay on the show. But Succession is a big one. So I started it how many years ago? Couldn't get into season 1.
Yeah.
Gave up on it. Season 2 went past. Matt and Adam are all about Succession. That I went back and I started watching all the way from the first episode right up to current. I am so addicted to the show right now. I'm rewatching season 2 again.
Wow.
Just to see if I missed anything to find out what's going on in season 3, which I'm current right now.
There are other shows, Cory.
Well,
you can't just watch Suits, Office, and Succession on
I'm gonna
repeat.
I'm gonna go a little bit out of my comfort zone here. I'm actually into the new Dexter right now.
Okay.
That came out. So I watched the original Dexter series front to back because my wife loved it.
Your dog's name is Dexter.
So, and that's
so
where
that's
where the name came from. Was thing, but then they have the 10 years later, I guess now almost. The new season of Dexter New Blood is out now.
Okay.
It is better.
Really?
Than the original one. So I'm not into my true crime drama here, but this show is amazing. So I'm gonna put it on the record. So when Adam and Matt come back next week, Dexter New Blood, I'm gonna get them watching that because they forced me to watch an episode of Yellowstone based on Adam's original recommendation.
And they lied to you. Wasn't that good?
It's horrible.
Oh,
it's horrible.
No. Okay, you heard it here, folks.
It's horrible. But Succession, we have to say. So you're watching Succession.
Yeah.
What is going on in commercial real estate right now? What's Meg Cooney working on?
That was, wow, switch gears.
Well, I figured Succession, Success,
commercial,
Meg Cooney, all kind of the same.
Boss brokers, okay. Yeah, I mean, similar to residential, interest rates are definitely driving this market right now. Vancouver has always had such a pride of, ownership in real estate. So, that hasn't really changed. We're seeing a lot more owner-occupiers in the space, which are driving up the price per square foot for strata units or buildings. And obviously, you've heard on every media outlet that industrial is very hot right now. So very competitive. There's no more land being made. And every listing that comes to market is competitive and multiple offers.
So before we get to our amazing guest today for our interview,
So amazing.
Our show's powered by our good friends over at Impact Commercial Group with over 50 years of lending experience. For any commercial lending needs, reach out to Al and the team at impactcommercial.ca. So without further ado, let's cut to our interview today with Meg Cooney of William Wright Commercial, talking about strata windups. Enjoy, guys.
Take it away, Meg Cooney.
And we're here today with Meg Cooney from William Wright Commercial, our strata windup specialist. Meg, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Cory. Thanks for having me.
So Meg, we start off every show, we ask our guests, how did you get in commercial real estate? How did you start your career and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so almost 10 years now. Not to age me at all, but started in 2012.
10 years. So you started when you were 12.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Started in 2012 in the pre-sale residential market. I worked there for 3 years before jumping into commercial in 2015 and have been in commercial ever since, focusing on land and development in Vancouver.
And when you say pre-sales, so you were in condo pre-sales before.
I was, yeah.
Now, were you in that business in the early 2010, 2012 range when it was...
Yes. So, a different time back then, a bit more of a flatter market in 2012, 2013, 2014, which really helped me hone my sales skills because it wasn't just, easy money and easy sales. You actually had to work for it a little bit more.
Yeah, well, that's why. So our listeners may notice today there's no Adam or there's no Matt joining us here because they're still stuck in the multiple offer, list a condo, show a condo, get 10 offers, cash your check phase right now.
Are you saying I should have never gotten out?
So they're not here because they're doing their multiple offer Mondays, but now on Fridays. So it's just me and you.
Must be nice. Yeah.
Just me and you. Meg, one reason why I want to have you on the show today, and for our listeners, some people may or may not know what a strata windup is.
Yeah.
We've had some listeners reach out who are in condos, presumably, that are probably in buildings that are much better suited for a tower based on an OCP that's come up, created an uptick in density.
Mm-hmm.
And from another standpoint, also people can look to invest in condos potentially that could become strata windups at some point.
Yeah.
Can you maybe walk us through what a strata windup is? And then we'll go from there.
Yeah. So to put it simply, a strata windup is the dissolution of a strata. And this often takes place for two reasons. Either, like you mentioned, there is a land use change where the underlying land value is far more valuable as a redevelopment site than you would get as an individual strata owner. For example, you look at Metrotown where you have a lot of low-rise apartment buildings or even townhome complexes that are sitting on about an acre of land. And the city has, in their land use plan, designated it for a tower. So you could either sell your unit for, $500,000, or you could probably sell it for close to double, just given that underlying land value is worth so much more.
Can we unpack that a little bit there? So I'm a condo owner.
Mm-hmm.
I just bought this great condo in Port Moody for $500,000. I move in, and then all of a sudden, someone like you shows up a year later. Strata wants to have a conversation because a new OCP is rolled out, which is the official community plan.
Yeah.
Which through some rezoning potentials, our 3-story wood frame 1948 building, you're going to show up and going to tell me it's going to be 28 stories.
Yeah.
So if I paid $500,000 for my condo and you show up and you can tell me you can get me $1 million for a developer, how do I compute? How does that value increase so fast? Can you maybe just unpack that a little bit for our listeners there so we can say, why is it worth $500,000 a condo, but $1 million as a development site?
Yeah. So, I think a lot of it really comes down to highest and best use. So, with these 1980, 1990 buildings, that was high density at the time. But now that they're close to SkyTrain, there is greater land value there. A developer will have significantly more revenue by building 20, 30-story building, which increases their ability to pay more for the unit. So they're not paying for your unit, they're paying for the land. What's nice as a strata owner is that you get a proportionate share of that land value, provided it's liquidated.
Now, is there an equation to determine me as a strata owner how much I would get? Because let's say, for example, I just bought my place. I just dumped $100,000 in it. I built the Taj Mahal in this wood frame disaster.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I get any more because I just spent all this money and my unit's that much nicer? Is there an equation that people would typically work off of?
Yeah, so we do see that a lot. It's the battle of, well, my unit is the nicest in the building and I should get more because of that. But, when we do valuations, it's which approach is going to give you the most. So you can do a comparable approach based on strata, or you can do a residual approach, which would be the land value. So, we're happy to pick the comparable approach where your kitchen is worth, yes, $100,000 more than your neighbor, but I think you'd much rather go with the residual. And, to break it down on a residual basis, developers look at forecasting into pre-sales. So, our job is to make them pretty optimistic about that. They then look at the cost to build and then the DCCs or CACs with the city. And finally, they're left with what they can pay for the land. Because that revenue number is so high, that really pushes up your value.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's take it one step further here. So now I've got the condo now.
Mhm.
And let's say there's 20 of us in the strata corporation, so 20 strata lot owners in this building.
Yeah.
What happens if one person doesn't want to sell? Can you walk us through the whole sort of start to finish process and maybe the timelines and the high points and low points of that process?
Yeah, so probably why you're hearing strata windups is more of a buzzword these days is because in 2016, the Bill 40 was introduced. And this was an amendment to the Strata Property Act, whereas it used to be that 100% of the owners had to vote to liquidate a strata, and they amended that to 80%, which creates a lot more flexibility and opportunity for, the majority owners to have this kind of lottery win of selling on a development basis. The process is longer. It can take, anywhere from a year to 2 years. I don't know what the courts are like right now, but probably not too good. But the value add that you get from going through this process is far exceeds what you get in that appreciation time for a year as just a condo. So, we're definitely seeing more and more strata, presidents coming to us. We have, a new listing coming up in January where, they really see that they've kind of won the lottery. Yeah. And they want to pursue this process because the time is definitely worth the value that they're going to be getting on a development basis.
So you mentioned there, one thing I took away from that was you talked about 80% as a number in which we have to sort of achieve, I guess, to agree to sell, and then we go to the courts. Do we need to have, let's say, for example, you guys come in, you do a presentation to the Strata Corporation where you might be one of a few companies that are pitching. And we've got 20 people in the room and only 11 people or 12 people are somewhat interested.
Yeah.
How many people have to agree in order just to say list the property? And then let's say you do your job and you get me the offer that we're all looking for. The 80% now has to accept. So what percentage of owners have to agree just to even just list the property just to start that process?
Yeah. So it's just 50%. We will kind of take a closer look to see what the objections are because obviously it's a longer process and we don't want to waste anyone's time, but it's only 50% vote to actually take it to market, hire a real estate broker to take it to market. And then the 80% vote comes when the offers arrive. So, if we come in with 50% to list it, we know we have to work really hard on the value to make it incentivizing for those who are on the fence or just not willing to go through the process at the time. But we find, once you get those offers that are stellar, there's multiple offers in front of them, it's a bit more incentivizing for them to take it. So, we're pretty optimistic that we can get over that 80%.
So we've got 50% say, let's give this a try.
Yeah.
You bring us the offer that we're all looking for. 81% of us say, let's do this.
Yeah.
We've got 19% that says we're not moving. Next step is it goes to the courts, if I understand?
Yes. Yeah. So next steps. And, in that as well, you're hiring a lawyer prior to the offer. There's, lawyers that specialize in strata windups. But yeah, you'd go to court. If there are any objections to the sale going through, they have their time in court to plead their case. Oftentimes it's just, the lack of wanting to move. Sometimes they don't feel like the value was high enough, or it's a procedure error. There was a case in 2017 on West 10th. And, they got 83.3% vote, took it to court, and it was actually rejected based on the lack of interest schedule. So they were supposed to provide that to all the owners before reviewing the offer. And because the procedure wasn't followed, it was actually rejected in court because they didn't follow protocol.
No, in that situation, do they go back, reset, accepted offer still in place? Hey, guys, here's what you would get.
Yeah.
And then we go re-engage the courts? Or is that just frustration boiling at that point and everyone walks?
Yeah. So they'd have to start the offer process all over again in that case. And at this particular instant, the developer didn't want to pursue it anymore. They'd already waited a year and a half. The sellers were fatigued and frustrated by the lack of care given to this. So, procedure in strata windup is so important because you don't want to be rejected on a technicality. So having the right person, take you through the process, that includes a real estate lawyer as well, that at least those bases are covered.
So we go to the courts.
Yeah.
We've got 81%. Presumably, we've got 81% or 80% to 99%. I'm assuming if we get 100%, the courts are out.
Yeah.
Let's sign this. What is the percentage, if there is one, of how many get approved by the courts and then how many get rejected? Is there a number out there floating amongst the industry that you've got a 50-50 chance, or is it slam dunk with the exception of the odd one?
Yeah, I would say, it's probably closer to 90% gets approval. And it really is when you're close to that 80% that it becomes a little bit more risky. Oftentimes, if there's only one owner who's objecting, it's pretty compelling for the courts to push it through because that, really is an indication that everyone wants to sell. But, as realtors, I think our job is to get a value that makes, an easy decision for everyone. Another, incident where it may not get approved is if they're really not getting that much of a lift.
Gotcha.
And we see this in situations where the building, maybe is starting to fall apart. There's special levies, they can't get insurance or, banks won't lend on it. So they're kind of forced to sell for whatever they can because the cost to repair is just not worth it and, can bankrupt a lot of people. So let's say we have a 4-story building and the new designation is 6-story. There's probably not a huge lift there, but for these owners to be able to get out and actually sell their homes, there's some value there as well. So that's another angle that we see.
That makes sense. Now, the whole strata wind-up process, does that only apply to residential? Or let's say, for example, we had a commercial building, retail on grade, 2nd-story office. Mm-hmm. Does the same process apply to that, or is that a completely different governance altogether?
It is. So it would be 100% for commercial.
So now, from an investment standpoint, we have a lot of listeners that are looking to invest into the commercial real estate business for the very first time. Mm-hmm. But part of a strategy might be to not only invest maybe from a commercial real estate standpoint, but to maybe buy condos or townhouses in these potential strata windups as an investment per se, where I'm going to rent it out. But because I feel that area is going to get rezoned or has recently got rezoned, there's going to be a very large lift coming. So I want to buy the $500,000 place in the wood frame building right now. Is that a strategy you see a lot of people in the commercial make deploy?
Yeah, we saw it a lot when the Bill 40 was introduced in 2016. There was actually a bit of a frenzy around it. And, those who actually were successful in selling on a strata wind-up basis went to go find their next property in a kind of similar type of building, age, and area plan. So, they saw the opportunity to do this again, and it has kind of become a strategy. However, you just can't guarantee that it's going to happen before, levies are coming in, strata fees increase. So it is a bit of a risk not knowing if it's going to be wound up. My recommendation would become the strata president and push it forward, or reach out to a real estate agent to kind of guide that process rather than just kind of waiting for it to happen.
Now, is there any areas that might have a higher chance of being rezoned, say maybe next to a SkyTrain? Is there any particular things that or landmarks you might target to say, hey, that area of Port Coquitlam hasn't been rezoned yet, but because it's similar proximity to the SkyTrain that we see in Port Moody, there might be a higher potential. I should go buy some condos now as a speculator to think there might be some uptick. Is there anything besides the SkyTrain station that would make a lot of sense for someone to look at?
Yeah, infrastructure, SkyTrain tends to be the number one. If you look at areas in Vancouver, like the Joyce Station, obviously that was a huge value add for owners in that area. 29th Station is an area of focus for Vancouver, same with Nanaimo. It's important to read the OCPs and meeting minutes with the city to see where their next initiative is going to be. Hospitals, for example, like schools. Anything that surrounds infrastructure, they want to see population there. They want to designate as much density there as possible. So I think, having a good relationship with brokers who are constantly reading that, because we're real estate nerds, and even just looking into it yourself and, following municipalities that are anticipating growth.
Now, when we look at, say, the SkyTrain potential expansion, they're talking to get out into the Langley area and stuff like that. That would be something if there was a small stratified wood frame building that's sitting potentially along that corridor.
Absolutely.
That would be something that we'd say, hey, those condos are 300 grand today.
Mhm.
If that goes up in value, it could be 600 grand, it could be $1 million.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Yeah. And I think that's just a good purchasing practice in general, even if you are looking for a residential condo, as your safeguard, you're buying near infrastructure and, you will see value increase in buying that real estate. The bonus is if it does get designated for higher density, you've really won. You see it in Coquitlam Center, for example, when the Evergreen line came in, Port Moody, same thing. You could buy an old 90s building or 90s condo for like under $200,000 after the SkyTrain came in. I think most people almost doubled their money.
Wow.
And with that density that's going on in Coquitlam Center, some of these low-rise condos are now in high-density areas. So not only did they have the safeguard of they've made money on their condo, but now they kind of get that multiplier of a 20, 30-story building. So you're getting into the market at a low price, but you really get ahead by targeting areas like that.
And not to mention, if you were buying into this as your principal residence,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be, there's no capital gains paid on that
Yep.
right now. If you sell it for those big lifts versus if you bought it as an investment,
Yep.
you'd be paying capital gains on your lift. So there's people that are maybe looking to maybe enter the condo market potentially as their first-time home buyer type thing.
Mm-hmm.
That could be another strategy, is to find stuff in these older buildings that may not be your dream house just yet,
Yeah.
but it might give you a fairly healthy lift, tax-free, to then get to that dream house maybe at a quicker, faster pace.
Totally. And, the entry price is lower. Like there's just so many reasons to get in. It's something that, needs a little bit of elbow grease to make it livable and, wait it out. But yeah, if you're buying in key areas that are, designated for density in the future, it looks like they're like a town center core, you will do well over time.
So is there an area you might see a lot of this, high concentrated, these strata windups happening right now? Like I know if we go back a few years and we look in Coquitlam, primarily around the Coquitlam SkyTrain station along North Road there was a lot of older wood frame buildings. The rezoning came out and now there's 40-story towers going along that corridor. Is there any other areas maybe besides that you're seeing a high concentration of these strata windups or potential strata windups taking place?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like New Westminster, there's definitely a lot of older condo product there. You look at Port Moody, just off of St. John's, there are buildings that are from the 1960s, that are really due for a lot of CapEx or expenditures to keep it running. And there's density incentives. So again, with the SkyTrain, obviously New West has multiple SkyTrains, but for Port Moody, there really is an opportunity for these owners to get out, buy something new. They could upsize with the value lift that they get. So, we're seeing those kind of markets definitely going through this process a lot.
So I'm an investor right now.
Mm-hmm.
I look into some of these suggested markets you have. Earlier in the show, we talked about a condo potentially, hypothetically, going from $500,000 to $1 million. Is there a formula that a developer will use in order to kind of create that value? So, in our world, FSR, FSA, all these terminologies are frequently, shot around that a lot of the public may not be familiar with. Can we maybe unpack or break down what that formula looks like coming into it there? That way, if I'm a guy looking at buying a condo and I see a building 3 blocks down that's 40 stories on a site that's 10,000 square feet, my building's on a 10,000 square foot site, is there a formula there that I could even just like back of napkin kind of numbers?
Yeah. So the first formula would be, what is your price per buildable and what the land is worth on a development basis. To kind of keep it simple, the price per square foot of buildable area that a developer is willing to pay is directly related to how much revenue they're going to get. So let's say there's, 100,000 square feet of new building and they think they're going to get 2,000 per square foot. That 2,000 per square foot is their revenue. They then reduce the construction costs, which can be anywhere from like $350 to $500 per square foot. And then they're left with, CACs and other items like that. It leaves them with the land value. So land value is then divided by the buildable area, and that's where you get your price.
So we have a site in this scenario. It's a 10,000 square foot site. We have an 8 FSR, which means a developer can get about 80,000 square feet of buildable onto this site. How does that compute for me as a condo owner? That's great that you can get 80,000 square feet, but how do I figure out how much money I can get?
Yeah, so using that 80,000 of buildable area, the developer will apply that to what revenue they can get. So let's say each condo is worth $1,000 per square foot. That gives you $80 million in revenue. You then look at the construction costs. So 80,000 times, let's say 500, that gives you 40 million. Then you're left with $40 million that they can pay for the land. And that would be divided proportionately to the owners. So there's 3 ways that this value would be divided to the owners. And it depends on when the building was built. So before 1974, if the strata plan was filed before then, it'd be based on the unit entitlement. If it was between 1974 and 2000, it'd be based on the interest upon destruction. And then any building after the year 2000 would be relative to the assessed values, which would be like your BCSS value.
So can we unpack that a little bit more there? So unit entitlement, for our listeners that don't know, what is unit entitlement?
Yeah, so you've probably seen it in your strata documents. It would be your proportionate share of like the strata fees and your obligation in that regard. So yeah, any building prior to 1974 would be based on that.
And unit entitlement, so that's my condo plus my proportionate share of the strata corporation, hallways, all that stuff.
Yeah.
That gives me my unit entitlement.
Yeah.
So buildings that are built after that time
is interest upon destruction.
So what is that? Sounds like an insurance word.
Yeah. That's kind of the easiest way to describe it. Is it's how the insurance company would look at the building should there be a fire or it falls down, and that's how they would allocate the insurance proceeds to each owner. And then finally, relative to assessed values. So simplest way to put it, you add up all the BC assessments, you take your percentage of the total value, and you would get a proportionate share based on that percentage.
So if I'm buying into the strata windup as an investment from a speculator standpoint, I want to get probably a larger unit if I can, because that would have a higher assessed value. And maybe I want a corner unit
with
at a higher
heights.
floor.
Yeah.
That would again drive up my assessed value again, which would give me a better ROI on the overall thing, assuming Anthem shows up with a big blank check.
Yeah. And it would have to be built after 2000. So
built after 2000.
Your wait might be a bit longer. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right now, obviously, this is a big thing out there. You mean we've had a massive SkyTrain expansion over the past decade. The market from the residential standpoint seems like it just keeps going and going and going and going. What are you seeing on the commercial side from just the commercial market as a whole? Is the commercial market as white hot as we're seeing the residential market, where it's just kind of like offers, property comes up, you pre-inspect it, and then out it goes?
Absolutely. I mean, Cory knows I just lost out on a property with 26 offers on it.
So let's talk about that.
I don't want to talk about it.
Let's talk about that. This is, for our listeners, this is a sore spot, unfortunately, because we found out this morning we didn't get the property that we put in for last night. So it was a property that came to market. We won't use the address. It came to market. Arguably, it was probably priced well under what it was worth. And maybe, that's the importance of, I think, hiring commercial brokers when you're dealing with that type of stuff. We're in touch with more insight and have access to more data than what the public can typically get, and maybe some more data than what the residential side of the market might have. So this property was listed. It was a great property. It was arguably listed below what it should have been listed at.
Yeah.
It was listed at $5 million, and it sold for $6.5 million, unconditional.
Yeah.
So this guy or girl is writing a check. So is that the marketplace? Like, didn't you mention there was 23 offers? Is that the world we're living in right now?
Yeah. I think the 23 offers is directly related to the price. I imagine some of the offers were pretty close to asking, thinking that they got a great deal. We were definitely over asked, pretty close to the top price and subject free. But, I think interest rates are affecting residential and commercial the same. Investors are able to purchase more compressed cap rates. They're looking long term. There's an opportunity to increase the net operating income because that's the direction that retail rates are going or office rates are going. And then there's underlying land value. And so, for my client, the site was almost an acre. There's no plan in place right now, but he knew, if rates continue to go up, it's just a good investment from an income standpoint. And if I strike gold and there's an amendment to the OCP, this property is just multiplied in value. So I think that's where there was so much interest, and I'm still sore about it. So
now too, I'll throw you on the spot here and ask you if you can open up your crystal ball here.
Yeah. What's
Meg Cooney buying today, and why?
My previous answer would have been industrial. It is now taken off to the point where I
just for the record, I think we are on episode 29, 30, somewhere in there.
Industrial.
And you're by you saying industrial, that continues the streak of every guest has said industrial so far. Okay, so you're going to go against the grain and you're going to say, I'm not going to go with industrial.
Yeah, myself personally, I wouldn't.
Okay.
I would probably look out further east. I think strip malls, low-rise retail, where there's an opportunity to reposition. The challenge with industrial right now, in my opinion, is there's a lot of owner-occupiers that are really bidding up the price. So from an investment standpoint, yes, we're seeing an increase in lease rates, but it's not at the rate that you're seeing the price per square foot increase for industrial. Right now, I think people are still thinking, oh, COVID's affected retail. To a degree, it's softened the market a little bit, but that's where my focus would be, have some scale with land and, target a strip mall that can be repositioned and you can grow your income over time. So,
and further to that point, you were just involved with a major shopping center in Chilliwack that sold, which is a market that maybe 5 or 6 years ago wasn't kind of the top of the market for a lot of people who are looking to maybe buy. And we're now sitting still in a pandemic. It's an open air shopping center with retail tenants that end up garnering 4 or 5 offers on that property and sold at arguably record-setting prices for the area today. And that's kind of the asset that you'd be looking for. Find something maybe a little bit further out, but has a bigger piece of land that down the road there could be a better option for that land 10, 20 years down the road, but you're going to get great revenue on the property in the meantime.
Absolutely. And I think, diving into the current rent roll and, where the market is kind of, where you strike. So, for this property, they were all kind of in the 20s net rates, whereas across the way, they were hitting close to 30. So
substantially below market rate. So there's a lift there for the investors.
Yeah. Gotcha. So there's an opportunity if you have the patience to wait for renewals. So, knowing when the expiries are coming up, when your opportunity is to increase rent, if there's anyone looking to leave, those are actually really good opportunities versus having a fully, we call it juiced up asset where there's really nowhere to go and they're basing the cap on that.
Yeah.
And you're often paying, a pretty low, or you're buying it on a low cap rate and there's not a lot of opportunity to increase that. So, our team, we look at rent rolls pretty closely and see where there's opportunity to grow that.
Well, Meg, we really appreciate you taking the time today coming and breaking out what the strata windup is, and hopefully a lot of our listeners had, was really good insight. Before we do let you go, because I know you're out there selling buildings, we've got our six-pack. We've got our 6-pack where we ask you 6 lighthearted questions about yourself outside of the office. Do you have a few more minutes to hang out with us?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Let's do it.
So the 6-pack is brought to you, is powered by our good friends over at Red Point Law. For all your commercial legal needs, visit them at redpointlaw.ca. Okay. All right, Meg, first question up. Favorite vacation spot?
Ooh, I'm going to have to go with Puerto Vallarta. Just lounging on the beach.
Favorite bar or restaurant?
Ooh, I would have to say Chata Thai in Coquitlam.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Is that your favorite restaurant too?
Well, I've got a 4 and 6-year-old, so my favorite restaurant's the drive-thru at McDonald's.
Nice. Or like Red Robin's.
We haven't got that far yet. They don't sit very well in a restaurant, so we're still, if we drive through, then they can only throw so many nuggets at my head before we get out of the parking lot versus at Red Robin, those chicken strips would be flying.
Oh my gosh. So no Chata Thai. It's kind of a nice place.
I'm not going there anytime soon. Favorite movie or TV show?
Ooh. Favorite TV show would probably be Breaking Bad or
good one.
Suits.
Oh.
I'm rewatching Suits right now. Why?
I think that's 3 episodes in a row now, or 4 that we've had Suits on the show.
Oh my gosh.
So that's awesome. That's awesome.
Picking up tactics left, right, and center from Suits, not Breaking Bad. But and then favorite movie, I would have to say Pay It Forward.
Good movie.
Yeah.
That's a good movie. This one's going to sort of tell us who you really are.
Okay.
Favorite band or singer?
Ooh, okay. Right now, I would have to say Tame Impala. Of all time.
Tame Impala. Okay, you have to tell me who that is.
I will. We'll play it on the way back.
Okay, sounds good.
All time. I would have to say Neil Young, probably.
Neil Young.
Yeah.
Good Canadian guy.
Yeah.
There you go. If you said Nick, I'm waiting for the one guest that comes on and says Suits, because I tick that box, and they come on here and they say Nickelback.
Oh my gosh. Wait, do you like Nickelback?
I should have known. No, can't judge me. Can't judge me. I also listen to Michael Bublé on a counterpoint. So.
I mean, yeah, it's almost Christmas, so fair.
Everyone's listening to Michael Bublé as of last week.
Yeah, you're not unique.
Last question up. A piece of advice you maybe give our listeners, whether they're looking to enter commercial real estate as a whole, or maybe they're looking to enter the strata wind-up world.
Yeah, I mean, I think commercial in general tends to be quite daunting. First step is reaching out to an advisor that can kind of guide you through the market and, really break down what your needs are. Whether you're looking for something quick or long-term or like creating a generational asset, I would say, just reach out to your advisor and, they can help you navigate this really tight market right now. You don't want to be doing it alone.
Speaking of good commercial real estate advisors, how can our guests find out more about Meg Cooney and what you're doing?
Yeah, so I'm going to give you my cell number, 778-960-5979, or you can find me on the William Wright website, WILLIAMWRIGHT.ca.
Great. Well, Meg, thank you so much for taking the time today. I know you guys are busy for breaking down strata windups, and we look forward to seeing more of you back at the office.
Awesome. Thanks, Cory.
Thanks so much, Meg.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.
And there you have it, folks. Our interview today with Meg Cooney of William Wright Commercial, strata windups. Only way to describe it, one word as always, phenomenal.
Phenomenal. Thanks, Cory.
It could have been.
Our guests would be happy to hear that.
Yeah. Well, you tell her if you see her. That was a phenomenal interview. I know our listeners will love it. I had some great things I took away from the show that I wasn't even aware of. So great insight for all of our listeners out there wanting to know more about strata windups.
Well, thank you. I'll definitely let her know.
Please do. Please do. Before we cut to the weekend here, I know everyone's busy and we got to get you out of here because I've taken up more of your time. Anything exciting you want to let our listeners know about, or any upcoming projects or any exciting listings you have?
Yeah, well, actually, on that note, we have a strata wind-up coming to market in January. So it's in Metrotown, just under an acre, and stay tuned for that or reach out for early details.
And how can people get a hold of you? I know you left your contact in the interview there.
That was the guest. I'm the host. So if you want to reach out to Meg Cooney, you can reach her on her cell, 778-960-5979, or email meg@williamwright.ca.
And people can always reach out to me anytime if you are a tenant looking to find a space. If you're a landlord looking to lease your space, or you're looking to buy and sell commercial real estate, please reach out to us. You can reach us at our Vancouver office at 604-428-5255. They're always welcome to drop me an email at cory@williamwright.ca, or you can go to our website, williamwright.ca, and sign up for the latest and greatest in what's coming up at William Wright Commercial and all of the commercial real estate world out here. Before we leave, Meg, anything else you want to throw in there?
I think you covered it all. Just enjoy the next podcast.
Great. Well, Meg, thanks so much for doing the double role today. You're the guest and you're the host. You're doing the double SNL role. So we thank you so much for that,
No
guys.
problem.
Great.
2 for 1.
Thanks so much for listening, guys. Take care.
Subscribe today.